we end up doing lots of different things, including sometimes driving diggers and loaders, apparently.
Yeah, rubber hits the road for sure. A little bit about who we are. I'll introduce myself. I'm currently head of product at Flow Software, and I've worked in a bunch of different product roles for over the last 8-ish years. And I'm at Ashley at SLI Systems. And around that time, we realized that there wasn't a really good product training offering in New Zealand, really. And ever since that time, I mean, with the shutdowns, etc., even all the options we had visiting us from overseas are gone. Meanwhile, the demand hasn't gone away at all. So we put our heads together and we do product training, we do public training, we do a lot of corporate and private training, we run mini workshops. But it's really more about the love of product than anything else. We do meetups, we run tech week sessions, and of course, we love Matrix. And that comes from Ashley and her time at Tableau, so I'll hand over to her.
Hey everyone, I'm Ashley. I'm at Tas at SLI, and Jules and probably a few other people on the call as well. Yeah, super excited to be here. Tas and I love to do short sessions. You can see we've done lots of different public training sessions, worked at lots of different places. And one of our loves in life is doing workshops and trainings to just help advance the product practice all around. And also we would love to hear your feedback along the way as we go. So we're not always the smartest people in the room. We would love to source information from everyone. So do feel free to put any feedback in the chat. We're going to use a couple of different tools along the way. So if you've got your own experiences with tools like visions and problem statements and want to give recommendations to the wider group, please, feel free to pop that into the chat anytime.
So as every product training exercise should, we start with a product related question. And this one, actually, I was thinking about it recently, but let's take a minute to think about your favorite product. Now, this is just us setting up for two things. One, we will have an exercise a little bit later in the session. But secondly, we want to introduce you to Mural and make sure you can access the Mural link that Ashley is about to pop into the chat. So take a minute to think about your favorite product. It can be a mobile app, it can be a device, it can be a service, it can be a physical object. It doesn't have to be software related. And think about what you like about it. Describe what you like about it in a word, a sentence, put it on the Mural, and we'll come back to it later on in the session.
So everyone should be able to get into Mural. If you can't, that's totally fine. You don't have to log in. You can just pop in, and I have summoned everyone to me. So you'll be up in this exercise one. You're going to notice a distinct theme and many dad jokes about eggs today. So this is exercise 1. And part of our goal here is to have you thinking about your favorite product and what you like about it. Part of it is just to get familiar with Mural because we'll use it a few different times. So on the left-hand side, your favorite product is, you've got a couple options. You can grab one of these sticky notes from the right-hand side and drag it over and just double click to type into it like this. So if you can see what I'm doing. You can also double click to add your own sticky. So that's really easy. Or if you want to get super creative, on the left-hand side, we've got icons and we've got images. So the item with the star in the left-hand navigation will allow you to add an icon. And then a couple down, there's one for images. So for example, my favorite product is my Soda Stream. So I'm just gonna drag that right in here and make it a little smaller. So if you feel creative, feel free to add images or icons as well. And so then just right here, just make a couple stickies for yourself, write down your favorite product, and then please add a sentence or two about why it's your favorite product. What do you like about it?
So you've got just under a minute. Well,
you can come back.
Do this exercise. Pressure. We work well under pressure, don't we, product people?
Feel free to use more than one sticky if you need space for product name plus your reasoning. Double click to add stickies. Easy, easy. I'm going to put a few extras around. You can grab them if you want.
And just while everyone is doing that, congratulations, Taz and Ashley. We've just hit the 100 participant limit. I didn't actually think that was going to happen. So that is awesome. So we have the live stream up and running at the moment. So I've just dropped those links into the meetup. Yep. So if you have anyone saying, I can't get in, just get them to ping me and I'll drop them the YouTube link.
And I will put it back into the chat again, just for anybody who might have come in late.
Okay, we are at time.
Okay, great. We can come back to this. And if you ran out of room, feel free to throw it anywhere else on the mural. We're going to come back to this mural. I'll share the link again as we go, but just so you know, and please feel free to ping in the chat if you have any questions or are having any issues accessing the mural.
Okay. So today we're going to be talking about vision and problem statements. As product owners, product people, we talk a lot about discovery being a really important part of what we do in our daily lives. But one of the other really critical things we do is synthesize that discovery and define the problem that we want to solve before we work with our teams to actually design and deliver those solutions. And vision and problem statements are really critical element of a critical tool that you can have in your toolkit. Today, the objectives for this session are really to understand the relationship between vision and problem statements and strategy on one side and delivery on the other. And we'll talk a little bit about the qualities of what good vision or what good problem statements can look like, and also how problem statements can improve our delivery outcomes. I love this quote. I'm sure you have seen it before by the person who wrote The Little Prince. I'm not going to say their name. It's too hard for me. Ashley, you want to give it a go?
No, keep going.
Okay. But the point of this is really that we all work with really smart people. They're professional, motivated. We all work autonomously. So how can we make sure that we're all working in the best way that we can? And so what we want to do is not give people tasks and ask them to collect wood and specify the work we want to do. We want them to do the best work they can based on their own capabilities and skills. And vision statements can really help us set the scene to do this.
So visioning is all about why, right? So when we create a vision statement at any level for any project, feature, epic, business, product, it's all about helping people understand why we're doing what we're doing, who we're doing it for, and why it's important to them. So that's really why we focus on vision statements as a great tool for product people, because it does exactly what Taz just said, helps us build that bridge and that inspiration that gives people enough information to move forward into the more tactical execution aspects of our roles. And from a development standpoint, for those of us who are working closely with delivery teams and development, one thing to think about is that the minimum things you need to start a project consists of a vision and a product backlog. So this slide particularly speaks to Scrum and Agile processes, but of course you could extrapolate this out to other things. But if we're thinking specifically as product owners or people who are part of Scrum and Agile product teams, while product vision isn't technically part of the Scrum process, it's still a really essential part of product development, right? So, and for those of us who are working directly with teams as product managers and product owners, a vision can be super, super helpful in prioritizing and communicating the reasons for prioritizing, what features we're building first, in what order, and can also really help us align both with our stakeholders and our teams around the scope, what we're not building and why we're not building it.
Yep, maximizing the work not done is what we want to do.
So vision statements are really, really good for alignment, right? And so a lot of what we do as product people is work on aligning our stakeholders, strong communication skills, of course, whether we're using the vision that someone else has crafted and turning it into work, with our team, or whether we're building it ourselves, or maybe we're doing a combination of those things. One of the things we want to encourage you to think about today is where and when can visions be useful in your day-to-day? And one of the things to think about here is, when do you need to create alignment? Because a vision statement as a tool is effectively just a description of the essence of the product, the feature, the epic, or the project, or even the team. And vision will answer questions about what problem can we solve or should we be solving? For whom are we solving it? And what is the change that we want to see? So in this case, it's what is the change that we want to see in the world. But think about this at a feature or an epic level. How might this be useful when we talk with our teams and our stakeholders about the change that we intend to make? So a vision will give our team or our company or our stakeholders or our customers a bigger picture of what's being worked on and why it's being worked on. And for a vision statement as a tool to be good, we ideally would see it being aspirational, right? People really respond well to aspirational statements. We love to know, what gets us out of bed in the morning? Who are we helping? How are we helping them? Also having something to reach for, a goal, that's really useful. And that's where the aspirational side comes in. But similarly, a product vision statement should be, or any kind of vision statement should be actionable, right? We should be able to do something with that information. We should be able to use it as a guiding principle or a guide rail that helps us know what's in, what's out. How could we help make trade-offs and decisions using that product vision? And of course, it should be linked to corporate goals as well, because we've got internal deliverables that we want to meet and outcomes that we're trying to achieve for the business.
And most product visions are super succinct. They are really, all they do is clearly communicate very quickly what a product will do, who it'll do it for, and why. And that's really all you need to have on your vision to make it good. So we thought we'd go through some examples of visions and turn it into a little bit of a guessing game, because I'm sure that a lot of us have worked with or encountered visions that we found useful in the past. So here is a list of visions that are interesting, inspirational, but also belong to famous companies that we might know. So can you guess the company? And you want to put it in the chat. If you
have a guess, just throw it in the chat for any of them. You can number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Start throwing names in. We'll give you the answers, or write them down, or just think about it for yourself.
I see some good answers. Everyone knows Nike's one. It's pretty cool, actually. I like it. Ooh. PayPal guess. Google guess.
The bottom right one's pretty easy. There's a clue in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. How rude of them not to think about it when they were putting up their vision. Ooh, Netflix closed but no cigar. Yeah, that's right, Michelle. Got some really good guesses on here. Not a lot of guesses for number 2 and number 4. Oh, Emirates. Yep. Okay. I see a guess. Okay, Amazon. All of these are big overseas companies.
Got votes for Nike and Tesla in the YouTube live stream.
Yeah. Nike, Tesla are actually, they must be quoted so often because they're so good, I think, at their job. I think we've got some really good guesses on here. Almost all of them have been guessed. So I might just move on. See, this is actually the answer. Obviously, some of them, like Walmart or Southwest, we are not that exposed to, so a lot harder for us to guess them. But what the point of it is, what do you like or not like about any of these?
So in order to give you a little bit of space to tell us or yourselves or each other what you like and don't like, I'm going to invite you back to the mural.
About the vision.
Sorry?
Oh, sorry. Michelle asked about the brand or the vision statement. And I thought if we start going into the brand, we're going to have so much trouble here. So just about the vision statement, because so the vision statement is supposed to describe the product and who it's for and why it's a good, you know, why it exists, what the purpose is. Does it do it, in your opinion?
So if you join me in the mural, or you can, again, just do this kind of on your own, totally up to you. But this is an opportunity to write down what you like and don't like about any of these visions. So if you look at these visions and think about what makes them good, what makes them bad, you know, if you were incorporating the idea of using vision statements or creating visions for your product, your feature, your epic, your team, your project, your company, what do you think you would take away from these? What things would you steal? What things would you want to avoid? Again, if you
vision. Sorry, go ahead, Ashley.
Oh, just tactically, if you need to add a sticky, just double click on the screen. You can steal any of these ones that I'm putting on there. So just tell us what you like, what you don't like. It can be about all of them collectively. It can be about specific individual ones. Feel free to drag your statements over to the left if you feel like putting it next to a specific vision statement, or just leave it over to the right and we'll take a look.
I like to think of this one as the vision I wish I had written.
Okay. So a couple of things that are just standing out, aspirational, motivational, you know, emotive, concise. These are the positive things, right? So think about what this would mean if you were writing a vision for anything that you're working on. Concise is good, aspirational is good, you know, something compelling, talks about the customers, right? Some of the things we don't like so much are vague terms, right? We don't know what finest means. We don't know, we don't like it when people are lying. You know, when people use really broad language that doesn't feel achievable, right? Those are some of the things that are standing out just as I'm noticing what people are writing about here. Something that's doesn't feel actionable or easy to connect. So you know, ideally you could strike a balance between being aspirational and being practical, right? And to be fair, writing a great vision statement takes a lot of work. There's lots of different ways you might do this and refine and craft over time with your team. But one of the things we would encourage you to do as product people is think about, when could this be helpful? In what situation could I use a vision, or could I co-create one with my stakeholders, my team? How would this help me at, you know, in various times? How would this help me to have this from my company? All of those questions are valid. I'll lock that.
Rob put something in the chat. He said a fair number of them raised the word believable for me, which is interesting because not every company starts out as a small company. You could argue that all of these are big companies and probably could lay claim to being at least in the top 3 of their industry. But every company starts out as a small company. So unless you have that big vision, sometimes it's not that bad to dream big, as long as you know you've got the funds and the resources to get there in the end. Actually, there's a really interesting, sorry, I'm going to keep talking, but feel free to keep working on that mural. But there's a really interesting book, The Good to Great. It's called From Good to Great. And it's very much about what companies that are exceptional over the long term do differently than other companies who, while they are good, are not great, or are good for a little while, or great for a little while, but not over the long term. And one of the critical elements that they have is that there is something that they are convinced that they can be best in the world at. And they all share that passion, they build it into their culture, they're really fanatic about it. So I think that kind of thinking is really important when you're crafting a vision as well. no matter how small you are, there is something in the world you can be best at. You just have to segment really, really tightly.
Okay. So shall we move on? Anybody, feel free to notice anything or type anything in the chat if you are noticing anything that we haven't already called out about our likes and dislikes of these vision statements. And then again, just we're going to ask you to do this a couple times throughout the day, but just encourage you to think about, when could I use this? Is there a moment in time where this would be useful to me to think about writing a good vision? Because visions can be, as we've said a few different times, really useful at every stage of development or at every level of an organization, right? So we often see company and brand and, product vision statements. And I think those are the things most of us are familiar with. Probably many of you, hopefully many of you have those company visions that are there. You may or may not know them. They may or may not resonate with you. But as we think about our work as product people, certainly a big part of that work can be crafting a product vision or co-creating a product vision with our stakeholders and our teams. But product visions are also useful at the release level and at the epic and feature level, right? So if you're starting a project, you're working on a release, maybe even if you have a regular recurring release cycle, what are the themes and visions that you have for that release? Maybe you're working on release phases, alphas, betas, pre-release phases. What's the purpose? What's the vision at every stage of that release? Or if you're working on an epic or a feature and you're rallying your team around, why are we doing this? Who are we doing it for? What's the purpose? Then a vision statement, co-created or created and shared, can be a really, really useful tool.
The other thing I will mention, that as you are thinking about your career development as a product person, it's not a bad idea to practice writing visions regardless of what level of the stack you're working at. Because as you go through those levels of up and down as part of your career progression, you'll already have gained a skill that you may need to do in a future role. So it's nice to think about it from that point of view as well. A few takeaways from this section then really quickly is that you must know the vision because it's important. It's important for the work that you're doing and your team is doing. And knowing the vision is different to being well understood, being well communicated and shared. So make sure that all of those things are done. You may need to update your vision. It may be that things have changed. Visions don't typically change very often, but again, it depends on where in the stack you are. And don't think that vision has to only focus on big things like company or product. You can absolutely use vision as a compass for every level of the stack that you're working. Just a little practical thing at the end. If you want to practice writing your vision, there are some different options available out there. These are the three that I and Ashley have used that we like. So there is a Roman Pichler. He has a smaller version as well. And then there's a full vision board. It's available for download on his website. The one that you see called Product Vision Template is available from multiple sources, including the UX Institute and scrum.org. But it's a super common template. You'll find multiple versions of it floating around the internet. And then finally, the last one, the Radical Vision Template, is a really modern way of looking at vision from a different lens. And this is part of Radhika Dutt's Radical Product Think Toolkit. So all of these are available online, or if you want to get a copy, just reach out to us at Product Aotearoa and we can send it on to you.
So we purposely decided not to spend time in today's session having you write your own vision statements, simply because crafting them does take some time, and if we do that exercise, we always like to have more time to give each other feedback. But highly recommend downloading one or two of these and just giving it a try. And if you ever want to reach out to me and Tas to give you feedback on it, or this is again a great thing to work on with your team. You won't get it right the first time, right? And that's why it's always really useful to get feedback. So definitely an iterative process, like lots of things that we do. Something that's worth noting on the left-hand side, and actually somebody just put a question in the chat, so I'll speak to that. Something that's worth noting on the left-hand side, the Roman Pichler version is called a vision board, but in fact, vision is only one component, and the rest of the squares on that canvas are really the product strategy, right? So The vision sits alongside the product strategy. The vision provides a more stable, longer term view of where we're headed, why we're doing what we're doing, who we're doing it for. Whereas the components of your product strategy, your target group, their needs, what your product is, how it achieves business goals, the channels, the competitors, those are the components of your product strategy. And your product strategy defines how you get to the vision, right? So if you think of it, we actually took the slide out, but I'll just describe it. If you think of it in terms of a cycle, or you think of it in terms of a linear relationship, the vision sits above the strategy, and the strategy then sets the stage for how you will achieve that vision. And then from there, you get into roadmaps and then backlogs, right? So you kind of move down the stack to more levels of specificity and shorter timeframes. So hopefully that helps answer the question. But that product vision board on the left is truly a combination of vision and strategy, not vision alone.
So let's move on to problem statements. Just like vision, problem statements can also apply at various levels of the delivery stack. In fact, actually for problem statements, the lower down the stack you go, the easier it is to drill down and describe the specific problem we are solving as a team. It's a really powerful tool for delivery teams and product people to work on together. Because we all know this as product people. If there is no problem to solve, then why do we exist as a company? What solution are we building to? Why will anyone buy our solution? So if we want to be really sure that we've understood the problem that we're solving, let's try and make sure that we've described them to the best in the best possible way that we can. Now, you'll remember, I think perhaps if you're on the mural, you might be able to jump in and even have a look at what you wrote down when we talked about our favorite product. So a couple of questions for you in relation to that. Did you think about features or releases or specifications when you wrote down why you love it? Or did you think about the outcomes or the benefits you're getting from it?
I put the mural link back in for anybody who wants to go have a peek at what they wrote or what someone else wrote. But you'll remember surely off the top of your head for your own what it was that you wrote down, and particularly think here about why you love or like the product that you wrote, right? So most of us don't list features, we don't list velocity, we don't list, we might list something about quality, but not typically things about lack of bugs, right? What are we usually saying? We're usually saying things like, it helps me do this, it solves this problem because it makes my life better in some way, shape, or form, right? And so those are really outcomes and advantages and that we get from using those products, right? It's all about what problem is it solving for me? What pain is it removing? I'm just going to quickly acknowledge a question in the chat, Tas, sorry, because it's back on the vision. Yep. So before we go too far forward, what level of collaboration do you suggest when creating the product vision? I would recommend, so I think it depends on the size of your company and sort of the nature of your team. I would always go for as much collaboration as you can, right? For a couple of reasons. One is, so I love co-creating visions, but it is often useful to show up with something for people to respond to. There are visioning workshops that you can run where, you really start from ground zero. So I think it depends on how comfortable your team is working together in that way. I've often found that it's useful to show up with a draft and then refine from there. But for sure, you don't want to keep it a secret, right? And for sure, I think just like with anything else, we want to be open to refining it with feedback. So, my personal opinion is as high a level of collaboration as you think is going to be meaningful and useful with the team. And certainly a product vision should be shared.
Just the other thing I'll acknowledge is that it's kind of cyclical in a way, because you start out with a vision and then you write the elements of your strategy that will help you move towards that vision. But when you've actually looked at your strategy, you might come back and revisit your vision. And it's very hard for you to co-create with people who haven't been involved in the different elements of that strategy. You can't just put someone in a room and say, create a vision. They have to have that background as well. So that's definitely something to think about. Make sure that if you can collaborate with people who have been part of the discovery journey, that's ideal. right. Cool. So what we were talking about in that product exercise, to come back to what Ashley was saying, is that we like things that solve problems that we have. We don't care necessarily about features or specifications or, particular things that the product has in that way. It's mostly about us as selfish narcissists. And so the same thing applies when we are building product for our customers as well. They are human beings and they have a need. And what we're trying to do with problem statements is concisely describe the need that they have in such a way that our delivery teams can, or even people around us, our peers can say, I can clearly see that this is the problem that our target customer is having, and this is what good looks like if we solve that problem. One thing that's important to think about is that we have to focus on facts, because problem statements should be designed to address the 5 W's, and we talk about it on the next slide. Ashley, anything to add to this slide before I move on? No. All right. Go ahead.
So using a problem statement, of course, forces us to use the 5 whys, although there are only 4. Who, what, where, why, maybe a when. And if you've ever used 5 whys as a technique as well to get deeper and deeper, that could be useful to think about here, right? Like if we're not able to answer these questions with enough level of specificity to help us make decisions or communicate value of a future state, then we can keep asking why and why and why. But typically what we'll see in a problem statement is who, right? So if we're designing solutions for customers, describe the customer and their attributes here. Now, as Taz said, as you get further and further into detail, problem statements often get easier to write and more useful, right? So they are a really great delivery tool, whereas a vision will often be a bit broader, longer term. So when we describe the customer and their attributes, we want to be at a level of specificity that really helps us understand why we're doing what we're doing, right? So if we have a specific target market, a specific user in mind, then we want to list that out here. We want to make sure that we're writing down what are they trying to achieve, right? What are they trying to do? And then what's getting in the way, right? So this is what's the problem? Describe the problems or barriers that are keeping them from achieving the thing that they want to achieve. And then describe because, what's the root cause or why the problem is there? Why is that barrier there? And therefore, what needs to be solved? And as a bonus, you can add the which makes me feel, which describes the emotion from the customer's point of view, right? So this helps us empathize with our customer. It might be an indicator of what truly the pain is for them and why that pain is there. So that's a useful thing to think about as well. It's not part of every problem statement. Some people don't use it and some people do. So just think about whether it makes sense for you to use that final emotional state as well.
Nikki asked a question in the chat. What is the relationship between a job to be done versus problem statement? I do think that a job to be done is the I'm trying to. It's a really nice way to dig deeper into that. You don't have to use the specific format, but really the job to be done, the reason your customer is hiring your product is exactly what the I'm trying to do is. I'm trying to achieve here.
So I'd say they're really great to use together and think about, again, where you would want to use them. A job story might take the place of a problem statement. Maybe you use them together. But a job to be done typically describes that one achievement and is a long, stable, not changing job that the customer needs to do no matter what. The problem statement adds context around that about why they can't do it or what's getting in the way of them doing it so that we could find a point of innovation and solution.
So good problem statements, the most important job that they're doing is that they're providing focus of the problem that we are trying to solve and frame the context of the problem's existence as in why, who has it, why, because of, how do they feel. when you describe the problem and not the solution, you automatically empower your team to come up with lots of different ideas to solve the problem. And they have the information they need to make the decisions around what solutions are good or not, including barriers that someone currently has. So if you have come up with a bunch of problems, but they're all going to hit the same barrier, you know that it's not going to work. It does provide you from creating concepts that are too broad, too discrete, trying to appeal to everyone here, because you're trying to really focus on a target segment and a single problem. So really, it's really the best use of it is at the delivery stage when you want to focus on a specific problem for a specific person. We've got a couple of examples here of something that's poorly written and then down the scale of improvement, although by no means perfect. So in this first case, we've defined a customer who is just a customer. What do they want to do? They want to be able to pay their bills by using their smartphone camera. What is that? That doesn't even fit in our problem statement. It's a solution. We don't care about that. Okay, so Ashley, do you want to read the next one?
Sure. So the next one is a well-written customer problem statement, because it does give us some more insight into the customer and what their problem is, right? So they find their bill paying tedious, and the process of entering the details for each bill is cumbersome because it's time consuming. So we understand why they have the problem. We understand what the problem to solve is. We're not solutioning. But in the last version, we find a few more improvements. Customers who use their mobile phones for banking, right? So in this case, we're going to assume that the people who wrote this have really honed in on a particular segment of their users that they want to solve a problem for. So we're not saying they have to use their mobile phone as part of a solution, but we are saying that these are the customers whose problem that we really want to deeply understand and focus on. Same thing, we understand why they have a problem, you know, what's going on, what the problem is for them emotionally. And also we've added this extra detail of something being error prone as well as time consuming, right? So if we were to finish this off with a statement of emotion, we might find like frustration, and if we were to finish this off in a way, you know, that helped us understand what the business impact to us is, you know, perhaps it's around things like lack of retention, lack of activation, drop off, right? So those are, you can start to imagine how a well-crafted problem statement really helps us think about the problem we're solving for the customer, and also would relate to potentially a business or product outcome that we're looking for.
And then the other thing to watch out for is that when you write an emotion, most people will write things like anxious or frustrated. And that's where you actually have to dig in a little bit deeper and say, okay, but why? What's making you anxious? And it could be, hey, I'm doing important financial transactions here. I don't want to miss a zero or send money to the bank account just because I can't really tell what I'm doing. I might get, you know, my power cut off because I send stuff to the wrong thing. So those types of things are really important to get and help you understand the context as well. So we're going to do an exercise.
Okay, I'm going to put the link to the mural in again. It's the same mural, so I'll just have you follow me. Oh, maybe I'll have you follow me. Hold, please. Just too many screens open. Here we go. In the chat, same link. So I'm going to pop into the mural and summon you so that we can come to another part of the mural over on the right-hand side if you want to scroll there yourself. Summon, come on over. So I have put a handful of customer problem statement cards, but I didn't put nearly enough because I had no idea we'd have this many people. So I'm going to start duplicating like crazy, but you can go ahead and get started. Grab your own, put your name on it with a sticky note if you want, put a picture on it. If you run out of room, just go to the bottom or go to the right. Mural's pretty forgiving about all this. So if you need to make a copy of one, just snag an empty one and do a Command or a Control D for duplicate. But I'm just going to pop them all over the board. So stake out your own customer problem statement card.
All right.
And if you're watching on our YouTube live stream, the link to the mural board has been posted on the Product Tank Auckland page. For some reason, we can't post the mural link in the chat. Don't know why, but it's there on the Product Tank Auckland event page for this event down the bottom if anyone's looking for it.
Cool. All right, I'm adding lots more at the bottom. So if you So, and if you've claimed one, feel free to drag it off to the side, put a sticky note. Remember, just double click to add sticky notes. That's all you have to do. Just double click on the screen. And we'll be using sticky notes to fill these out. So I'm just going to add lots more. If you're not in the mural or you prefer to work outside of the mural, of course, just feel free to write this down on your own. Tas has the problem statement up on the screen, but the exercise here is think about a problem that you're solving. So this could be feature level. This can be, epic level, product level,
on at the moment.
Whatever works. Yeah, something you're working on here. And go ahead and try to write a problem statement. So the way I would recommend doing this in the mural is just double click and add a sticky that you can, and I'll just pop a bunch of them around the board. Feel free to grab them. But what you'll want to do is take your sticky to one of the lines. So one sticky per blank line is the best way to do this. And I'm just going to keep adding little cards.
Okay, hot tip in mural. When you click on a sticky, you get that little bar up top. You can actually change the size of it. You can make it a longer one.
True.
But if you don't want to get complicated, just put lots of stickies on there. That's fine. All right, I'm going to give everyone 5 minutes.
Feel free to pop any questions in the chat while we do this. And also let me know if you're having any problems with the mural. But
Michelle says, kudos for finding so many cute egg memes. We had a lot of fun putting this together, actually. It did make us a bit hungry, but totally worth it.
Excellent effort.
Oh, thanks.
No exaggeration.
Extra special work.
I feel like we need some mood music at the moment.
I agree, but unfortunately I didn't set it up well enough to sound good.
And then remember, Ashley, one of our participants in one of the meetings complained that the music was too distracting. So we kind of, yeah.
You guys could sing us a tune.
For the record, this is water.
That would be very distracting.
Trust me, you don't want to hear me sing.
Then you guys would be writing a problem statement about my singing. Somebody remove the pain. That'd be the mute button. See, we're back to the solution. Oh, real life mute. Somebody please, please, please build it.
I have one, Ashley, but the problem is, yeah. It goes on at unexpected times. Okay, we're about halfway there.
So we've got a question in the chat or a statement. So assumption that you start with the problem statements, and as you look to solve them, the vision statement encapsulates the solution. Yeah, that is definitely an order. I think problem statements can be really useful even once you've already created a vision and you're really, executing on strategy and backlogs and kind of getting further down into the delivery stack. But certainly when you create a vision, you need to understand your customers' problems. Absolutely. Like at that top level of vision and strategy, you would be probably more at a market level or, a broader customer level, really needing to understand the pain that you're taking away from your target customer segment, definitely.
Also, I don't know if we've talked about solution at all in this entire thing as something that we want to talk about. At this point, if you think about that infinity loop that we were talking about, we're still on the left-hand side. We're still thinking about discovery and defining the problem. So we're still in the problem space here. And so these are tools to explain the problem to other people in a succinct sort of way, based on all of the discovery we've done. And I don't think visions are really using a solution statement there. You can have solution and definition statements. I think that's what product requirement documents are sometimes about. But vision comes first, and then problem statements kind of dig into that vision further and say, if this is the outcome we're saying we want to achieve for our customers, what is the context around this? So we're still not talking solutioning at all. We're just giving our teams the information they need to start designing those solutions. I hope that helps. Okay, pretty close. All right, how did everyone find that exercise? Was it easy? I will say that when we run this exercise with clients for the first time, it's often revealing of how much we do or don't know about the customer we're serving, or the problem we're trying to solve, or the context in which that problem exists. But that's exactly why it is a good thing to do. And you might end up doing it multiple times during that discovery process until you get to a point where you say, I can actually confidently write this problem statement because I've gone away and answered all of the questions that I was just making assumptions on.
Anyone feel like popping anything in the chat? If you have used problem statements in particular situations, I'm sure people would love to know where you found them useful. If you have any feelings about the exercise we just went through, was it hard? Was it easy? Did you like it? Could you imagine yourself using it? Feel free to pop that into the chat. I don't know what everybody.
We've also got some tips and tricks when you are evaluating your problem statements to think about, when you are describing the customer you are solving it for. Remember that this is the narrow description of a customer. So be as specific as possible. When you are talking about the desired outcome, as I think it was Nikki earlier on who was talking about the job to be done being useful here. Don't think about features or actions, think about outcomes. And again, from this stands in my way, what you're actually trying to do here is tell your teams what the problem is with the current solution or the alternative. So that they don't have the exact same problem with the new solution they produce. It's really important to understand this piece really well.
So Nikki asked a question in the chat about, we've got a few coming in. So what if you don't know which value is the most important if you have a broad user set? So this is actually where you want to do work to define the most important user set, right? So segmenting your users is really, really important, right? So and also problem statements can be really helpful in finding common problems across users. So in an ideal world, you would know which segment of users are the ones you're solving for at the moment, right? Now, if you have multiple segments and they all have the same problem, great, you can solve a lot of people's problems together. But there is a real risk that by being too broad, by defining your audience too broadly, you don't solve anyone's problems very well. So that's really a question of strategy, right? So, you can't write a good problem statement if you don't know whose problem you're solving. And particularly lower down toward the delivery side of things, we need to be very clear about who that is. You're lucky if you can solve a lot of people's problems.
You can write multiple problem statements. There's no rule that says you have to write one per epic.
Yep. And particularly if you've got features or user stories that are solving multiple problems, for multiple users, and those are part of your backlog, if you decide to use problem statements in that, you really should think about having segmented specific customer problem statements.
Yeah. And in terms of breakdown, Satya asked, should they be broken down at an epic level or story and delivery ticket level? And really the answer is at the problem level and the context level. Those are the two things that matters. What's the problem and why is there a problem? And if those are different for different people, or the solution would differ based on the outcome and the barriers, then that's the place to segment.
And I would say, for me personally, I typically use them more at an epic level. And then at the story level, then that way we all have this sort of guiding reference point of, this is the larger problem space that we're in, this is the context. And then our stories can really be more about solutioning or, a future state than they are about, the current state, right? It's how we're going to close the gap. So there is a relationship there that can be really useful. And Nikki, for you, since you said you're starting the research, one of the things to think about in your research is what kinds of questions are you asking that are going to help you write good problem statements later, right? So how do you uncover the real problems and the context and the emotional impact of those obstacles while you're doing your research? Yep.
Customer empathy is from the YouTube stream. Found it easy when I write it from my own experience as a customer. So my comment is that, yes, as much as you can build that customer empathy and customer centricity, the better it will be for you to not only describe the problem, to build solutions and products that actually not only solve the problem, but actually wow your customer, build advocates, are delightful, have lifelong users and champions.
And one of the things that we find in a lot of the training we do is that we might be working with delivery teams, product owners who are not as close to the customer. Maybe there are channels in between. Maybe you work for a parent company, or your company organization doesn't have you sitting as close to your customers, as in some other areas. But so then the trick becomes, how do you get enough information to do something like this well, right? If someone else is a proxy, then that's okay. It's always really good to ask them. We've had a couple people who are product owners working with product managers, and they've started using problem statements as a collaborative way to extract information and make sure. Another use case that we've heard often is bugs, right? Here are bugs. We need to make sure we understand why we're fixing what we're fixing or how important it is to fix it, and communicate that. And so, using a problem statement to describe a problem someone is experiencing with your product can be really, really useful in terms of sort of bug triage, prioritization, and explanation, or might be a good technique for you to extract information from your support team or someone else who's passing that information over to you. In customer forums, like feature request forums, I've definitely used the tactic where we require that our customers write a problem statement as part of their feature request. Right. And that way we can really understand the problem they're having and how it's making them feel, as opposed to just taking feature requests and solutions.
Yeah. Just wanting to wrap up, keeping an eye on the time here. Really quickly, there's some similarities between visions and problem statements. We know that up and down the stack, they can be done at all of those different levels. But the key things are always be thinking about the customer and the customer experience, putting that at the heart of everything you do. It is all about the outcomes and the value that you are providing your customer rather than the features you are building that you're describing here. And ultimately, these are just tools. And if you have other tools or better tools that do the job, but these things are well tested, well established, there are good templates that you can use. So start with what's available and then iterate on that. In the differences, we've mostly focused on how problem statements are different, because visions are like relatively brief in some respects. The problem statements tend to be more descriptive than aspirational. So we're already inspired. Now we just want to solve the problem, tell us more about the problem. And so that's what the problem statement should do. It has to provide the context. It has to provide the color. It has to provide the feelings and the emotions, because this is how we know how we can build compelling solutions that will actually solve a problem rather than just go into another stack of nearly there, but not amazing list of features. And then finally, they do provide some guardrails as well. So as I mentioned, if you don't know why someone has a problem at the moment, your solution could end up inadvertently hitting that exact same barrier or problem as well. Think about people who have either accessibility issues or technology or access to certain things. If you haven't taken those things into consideration, your solution isn't going to work no matter how much time or effort you put into it. So super important to think about these things when you're writing your problem statements. Okay, look at that, 5 o'clock. Now we go to what?